Welcome, Ursula, to the Empathy Edge podcast to talk to us about all things conflict resolution. I'm so excited to talk to you today.
Thank you, Maria. It's great to be here.
So, before we dive in to all the juicy nuggets you're going to share with us today, tell us a little bit about your story and how you even got into this work.
Sure. So I practiced commercial litigation for 17 years.
Wow.
Went to law school, got my JD, started a big firm, and never felt completely settled in what was going on and how we were going about it in terms of efficiency. And then as I kind of grew in my practice, I sort of always told myself the way out is up. The way out is up. Ursula, just make partner. Ursula, build your own client base. Ursula, build your own niche practice. Ursula, go start your own law firm. So I did all those things. And then I was still left with sort of this sense of limitation around the ability to actually achieve results for my clients, to actually align to their business objectives, to use litigation as a path to realize their greater goals. It often doesn't. The business case for it is often not there. And I felt, I would say, stifled and limited. And I got to a point where I just really couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And I decided to leave, to close my law firm, transfer the files, leave the practice of law. And I kind of thought I would go in-house, or I thought maybe I'll go into policy or something like this. And I took some time to really just kind of reflect and go inward. And I started conceiving of this, like conflict reimagined. What's actually driving conflict, and how do we actually help clients, help businesses get back to doing the thing that they're there to do? And started realizing and understanding within myself and more broadly in the world that conflict is actually opportunity, if you
Yeah.
understand what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the absence of conflict is not empathy. That's not collaboration, right? We need a little bit of that conflict, that friction to innovate, to grow, to question what we're doing, to make sure that we're getting another perspective and another point of view. And I come from an Italian American family where we're
Mhm.
not afraid of conflict,
Yeah.
but it I do understand how it can go off the rails for people in so many ways. And so let's talk a little bit about that and kind of the link to empathy and perspective taking, because the way we talk about empathy, as you know, on this show is more about perspective taking.
Hmm.
You can share emotions, and that's often a part of sort of the traditional definition of empathy. But it's also about being willing and able to see, understand, and appreciate another point of view. You don't have to
Hmm.
agree with it. You don't have to condone it. You don't have to cave into it in order to
Hmm.
be empathetic. So
Right.
it speaks right to this idea, especially one of the myths that I bust about empathy is that empathy is not about agreeing with someone. It's
Right.
just about being able to get their perspective and understand each other's perspective enough that you can take a next right step forward.
Right. You can ultimately realize your own goals and understand in the first instance what those are.
Hmm.
So so the way I kind of approach conflict resolution, and I think this will resonate with your approach to empathy as well, is that you're not going to be effective in a negotiation or a tension or a conflict or in an effort to espouse empathy unless and until you have a good awareness of yourself and
Yeah.
you've released your own charge and you've gained your own sense of clarity.
Hmm.
If your back is up, if you're amped, even in the smallest irritation, and a lot of us, especially high performers, are really good at not knowing or feeling ourselves, but the energy's still there. And so we're driving forward, we're bulldozing forward, we're achieving, we're getting stuff done. We think we're on the path, but we are transmitting and spreading an underlying energy unconsciously that is actually limiting us and the teams around us.
Yeah.
So you're not effective in navigating conflict or in realizing conflict as opportunity unless you're really utilizing it to go more inward in yourself and release your own blocks.
I love that. And we were talking before we started recording that the first two pillars of my five pillar framework and the empathy dilemma are self awareness and self care, because you've got to get your own house in order and understand how you show up in the interaction.
Hmm.
What are you contributing to it? Right.
Right.
And what are your emotional triggers? So you're prepared. You can sort of rehearse that ahead of time. But I would love to hear more from you about that key role of self-awareness and authenticity. Um, again, even before you get to empathy, in the role of having healthy, instead of saying conflict resolution, I'm going to say having healthy conflict, right?
Mhm.
We both were talking about Chris Voss,
Yeah,
the expert in negotiation and kind of using tactical empathy. Tell us where he might be getting it wrong or missing the mark.
sure. Yeah, I've read his book. I think it's Never Split the Difference. Is that right? Chris Voss, he comes at empathy from the background of an FBI hostage negotiator, right?
Hmm.
So he is basically using different strategies and tools to make the other side feel heard. Mirroring their voice, their cadence, their body language. All of that is great. But what I will tell you that's missing from that analysis is that that is not effective unless and until you have a handle of your own energy and emotions. Because if you are irritated, even if you are doing a great job of keeping it repressed, it's coming through. We are intuitive beings. We feel each other's energy. It's not the words, it's not the scripts. It's the energy that underlies it. It's the emotion that underlies it. And so, if you're an FBI hostage negotiator and you're negotiating with someone to release a hostage, that's not your child. That's not your family member. That's not, so cool.
Yeah.
You can come in and like have all these great external strategies and they're brilliant and effective. But if you're not doing the work to know what this is and how that transmits to the other side, then you're not going to be at your full power, I guess I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think,
Yeah.
it works for the situations for which it works. But when we're talking about everyday empathy, when we're talking about empathy at work or in our relationships, we are bringing, um, I don't want to say baggage because that sounds so negative, but we're bringing
Hmm.
our stuff to the
Hmm.
situation always, even if it's at work and we think we're very analytical and data driven. We're still human beings and we
Hmm.
still have our biases, we still have our perceptions, we still have our lived experience that we're bringing to those discussions or conversations or debates, no matter how hard we try to be neutral.
Hmm. That's exactly right. And that's what needs to be honored.
Hmm.
This idea that we can like emotion is the problem. So let's put motion to the side. No, you can't. You can't.
Yeah.
We are emotional beings. We are driven by emotion in everything we do. And emotion underlies every conflict and every tension. So the quicker we can just accept that and honor that, the best we can do as human beings. Because to your point, we're never not going to have fear or insecurity or anxiety or worry or pride or shame or guilt. The best we can do is develop a self-awareness or the habits and patterns that'll allow us to be self-aware. Because once we can bring self-awareness to it,
Hmm.
that's when we're empowered to not only navigate what limits us, but to actually have an impact in a negotiation, in a leadership team, in any kind of high stakes or low stakes conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. And just side note, I'm going to put for my listeners, I'm going to put a link to my two interviews with Robin Dreeke, who was head of the FBI counterintelligence behavioral unit. And we talked a lot about this, and he has evolved his strategy to move beyond just the specific situations that he faced in those roles of converting people to be spies, right?
Mm.
And he talks a lot about self-awareness and emotional regulation, and it's like he's got that missing piece in there. So I'm definitely going to put a link to his episodes in the show notes for everyone who's kind of interested. um, but I want to talk also about this idea of, we talk a lot about it takes two to tango.
Hmm.
And that's true, right? You're bringing your energy, I'm bringing my energy, we're both bringing our baggage to the situation, and we're reacting and responding to each other in the moment. But you talk about the fact that it only takes one person to resolve a conflict. Can you explain what
Hmm.
you mean by that?
Yeah. It takes two to tango. So what if you don't have two? You have no tango. Um, Conflict, tension, or any kind of interaction between two humans is an exchange of energy. There's energy in our words, there's energy in our feelings, there's energy in our actions. And we are spreading that back and forth. You can go back to quantum physics and the law of attraction and think about, subatomic particles being attracted to some subatomic particles of the same frequency. That's what happens unless and until we change the energy. So if you're in a tension with someone, and we see this in our national politics too, actually.
Hmm.
We can see this broadly and on a collective level or on an individual level. Like what we're going to do when we're sort of just going back and forth and not pausing and taking stock of ourselves is we're just gonna reverberate the same back and forth. Now, if one person takes a break and they really go into themselves and do the work of unraveling their limitation or their block, they release the charge. I like to say they are releasing the charge of their own, to use your verbiage, baggage or their own emotional block. They're going to come back to the conversation emanating something different. And guess what? That spreads too. Okay, that spreads too. And so if you are coming into the conversation with a sense of courage, neutrality, hope, love, peace, you're going to bring that energy and you are going to affect your counterpart if you can stay in it. You cannot stay in it until you've brought the self-awareness, the consciousness, and sort of some of the strategies that I utilize to kind of help people like move those blocks. But what's awesome about it is it's not just about self-improvement. Oh, I've got this issue. I'm sad or I'm, this or I'm that, and it's limiting me or I'm scared. I need to block that. It's you can actually harness real power to affect change within your high stakes negotiations, within your teams. It's incredible. You can become the more full, powerful, creative version of yourself, essentially.
I love all of this because I have to share with you one of the things I talk about in my leadership workshops when I get the question of, well, what do I do if the person I'm in tension with is not being empathetic to me? And, listeners, I know you've heard me say this before, but we can't control other people.
That's
And
right.
so the only element we can control is ourselves and what we're bringing to the interaction. And we can model how we want that interaction with that person to go. And they may
Hmm.
not be impacted by it in the moment where they stop and they realize what they've done, in an
Hmm.
unhealthy way, and they're thanking you for changing the tone of the conversation. It's probably not going to happen in the
Yeah.
moment, but you
Yeah.
are you are impacting that person even when they walk away to realize that, wow, I was being asked questions. I was heard. They really remained calm, even though I was coming at them. They're going to be thinking of all of those things when they walk away. And so all you can do is set the tone for the kind of interactions that you want to have with
Hmm.
people.
Hmm.
And I I love hearing this today just because I am struggling with my own feelings of being an empathy teacher and where I'm not embracing empathy for people right now. And I'm
Mm.
struggling with that. And it's like, well, it feels like such a Herculean task.
Mm.
I feel like Sisyphus of like pushing the rock up the hill and having it roll down
Yeah.
again. But you're
Yeah.
you're reminding me, you're sort of giving me a touchstone on
Yeah.
you can always have the impact with what you bring to the
Yes.
discussion and what you bring to the challenge that you're having.
That's exactly right. So for me, the way I like to think of it, when you're in an interaction with someone who's not capable of empathy, or let's say even worse, they're really just like in their cave. They're in their cave. It manifests as like a self-absorption, or you could even use the word narcissism.
Hmm.
You're with someone who's not there to hear you. They're there to talk. They're not there to listen. There to tell. And in those moments, the way I like to think about it when I find myself in those moments, and I was in one yesterday, is that you want to make sure you are sourcing your energy from you and not from that person. So I was in on this call yesterday. It was not what I expected. I suddenly realized the person I was talking to, like the call was to understand me and my approach and my way of thinking, right? So I was expecting to talk and have other people listen and take notes. And I found myself dealing with someone who was bringing an energy that was resistant and I don't want to say antagonistic, but it was like defensive and
Yeah.
arguing. And he was telling me starting, and then I took a breath. I noted where I was. I didn't know I was going into that kind of a call. Noted where I was. I took a breath and I said internally, back to me, like back to me. So I brought all my energy back to me and I stopped resisting and engaging and trying to get a word in edgewise. Because when we're doing that, even if it seems polite or professional, if we're like, like this, like we are actually energizing that because now we're battling it. We're bringing a resistance,
Yeah.
and so it's the same energy because we're fighting it. So I said back to me, like, I'm not doing this with this person. I'll find another way, speak to another person, speak on a different day. All my energy has got to come from me because if it's about the ping pong with him, all I'm doing is draining myself.
Hmm.
So if you're with someone who's not able to be open and curious, that's not what they're there to do. They've got their own stuff happening, their own dynamic internally, or maybe with other people on the call. It's that awareness, that moment, and you can feel it in your own body.
Oh
Like
yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel
You feel
myself.
it in
It
your
felt like I was like
chest. Yeah.
I felt like I was a kid back in my childhood home trying to be like, but listen to me. And then I was like, no, Ursula, like you don't need to convince anyone
That's
to
not who you
listen
want to
to.
be, right?
No, I'm
Right.
energizing the wrong thing. And so
Yeah.
bring it back to me, back to me. I focused on my own body, my own breath, and I got a little more quiet and a little more observing. And I
Right.
stopped trying to convince and persuade and compel. And like, that's a resistance energy and it's not powerful. It's draining and limiting.
Okay, this is so good. I'm so glad we went down this route. So I want to ask the follow-up question that I get from this, which I don't know how to answer very well. I'll be
Okay,
vulnerable.
let's try.
Does it, does that mean I'm condoning or I'm sort of relinquishing my position if I
No,
do that?
no,
And
it
how
does
do I
not.
get, if you're in that conversation, how do you still stand firm in your way that you want to do it or the strategy that you're recommending or whatever it is in that moment where you're not
Yeah,
making the person feel like they quote unquote won. That's what I get a lot is like,
yeah.
how do I do it so they don't feel like they won?
Well, first of all, you can't affect how they feel.
Right.
And I would submit that you have to let go of winning. Winning and losing is not the paradigm to operate in. Go back, have a conference with yourself about what do you need. And what you need is never to win, to make them wrong, to make them feel this, righteousness or victimhood. No business is built on righteousness and victimhood. Like that's not what drives the bottom line. No one is cusping into the next level as an individual or a leader of business by like being right and making other people wrong. That's not. So what do you
Right.
need? What do you need? What do you need for this deal? What do you need for this contract? What do you need for this relationship? What do you need from a practical, logical, neutral, like pretend you're an Excel spreadsheet. You're just an Excel spreadsheet of neutrality.
Right.
What do you need? And
Yeah.
know that within yourself.
Right.
And I was on a call with someone who's like, I just need them to know that like they can't push me around.
Yes,
That's not it.
exactly. Yeah.
You're still carrying an emotional charge, and you need to
Yeah.
go back and release that charge so you can get the clarity to answer that question. And when you can answer that question, and so you're in more of a grounded, neutral state, you've released your charge, coming back at that person, how do you deal with them? Making sure you're sourcing energy from within yourself. And then once you're in that space, you can start doing a little bit of what Chris Voss does.
Right.
You're
The
basically
curiosity.
like
Yeah.
you're kind of a blank canvas, and then you can hold space for them and you can ask
Yes.
them questions and put the focus on them. And it is not letting them win. It
Right.
is giving them the room, the space to release their own emotional charge. And it's
Yes.
and you're basically kind of almost like a friend or a therapist or you're like observing
Yeah.
them. When we know our worth and we feel solid and grounded and powerful and clear, we don't need to convince anyone of anything because we know.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
it's so interesting because you don't need to find your energy or your power or your worth from what that person does or thinks because you just know,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So
Well, that's why
yeah.
that foundation's got to be so solid so that you can take on another perspective and ask the curious questions to get to what's underneath, get to like what's actually causing this resistance for this
Hmm.
person. Let's let them talk and be heard. And let me be in a place where I don't take that in with defensiveness or fear.
Hmm. Exactly.
Right. So
Right.
yeah, because
So,
that's the thing is being able to get curious about finding out what their context is. And again, it doesn't mean we have to agree with them, but it's going to give us more information. And I love, telling this to my more analytical types. Think of empathy as information gathering.
hmm,
Think of it as a way for you to just remain curious and try to understand where the other person is coming from so you can figure things out together. Because the
right.
more information you get from them, number one, like you said, when you get them talking, it lowers the temperature of the whole thing. They start to feel heard. They start to maybe even bring their energy down because they realize there's nothing for them to rail against.
Right.
You put down the rope. There's nothing
Right.
for them to tug anymore, right?
Right.
So
Right.
that
You've put
actually
down
kind
the
of gets
rope.
them in a state of like, oh, I'm actually being listened to right now.
Exactly.
And again, we don't have to do what they say at the end. We can just now have a conversation where we're sort of this sounds a little patronizing, but we're the adult in the room,
Hmm.
right?
Yes. Yes. You're the adult in the room.
Yeah.
So you have to release the charge. You have to
Mhm.
release your own charge, your own emotional charge. You have to go a little deeper with yourself in terms of what is being touched or affected. If you're in a space where you're like, I'm letting them win, then you haven't released the charge.
Yeah.
If you're still worried about letting them win or what they might feel
Or
or think
getting
or
your way,
need.
like I've got to close that, like the pressure of like, let's say it's this, I got to get my contract terms. I have
Hmm.
to get my contract terms. You're just like, you're holding on so tight. Or, I've got to get my budget plan approved. I have to do it
Hmm.
this way, right?
Right. Right. When you've released the charge, it's less like, I need to get my budget plan approved. It's more like what I need is a budget plan that's approved. I think this is the highest and best way to go about it. I'm going to talk to this person. You come into the call, you're more neutral, you're clear.
Yeah.
And then they're bringing in energy and the magic, the power, the thing that's wild that happens is when you've released your emotional charge, you also get clarity, not just about strategies and solutions, but you get clarity about the other person. And
Yeah.
you mentioned you're the adult in the room because you can suddenly see, oh, this person is like you would view your child who's having a tantrum. They're
Like
going through a storm cloud. They're going through a
they're
thing.
scared or
They're
they're
scared. Yeah.
insecure or they are
Yeah.
overwhelmed or whatever it
Yeah.
is. I want to ask a follow-up question to that.
Sure.
What are some ways to release your emotional charge? What are
That
some
that's a
ways that
great
work for you?
That's a great question. And I think for those of us who are just like use the word of my 14-year-old daughter, big brained. We're like big brained, we have so much intellectual power and like
Yeah.
we get stuck in the story. So the ways are going to vary person by person, but the core of it is you want to replace the energy of the emotion and bring in a new feeling. It's not about the story. It's not about what you tell yourself. It's not the drama or the script or the thing. It's not a mantra. It's an energy. So
Yeah.
you literally go into it, find the feeling, feel into it, acknowledge what it is.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Don't
it's,
try to deny it.
yeah, don't try to
Yeah.
deny it. You got to honor it. But drop the story because like an emotional feeling is like something that passes through. We keep it alive with our thoughts. So when we add the drama and the story and the he said, she said, we pick up the phone and we complain to our best friend. You can't believe what happened. Like we are just keeping that energy alive and perpetuating it forward. But if you can go deep and maybe you need to take a walk or exercise, and for a lot of people, and this includes me at times, finding that feeling can be hard. You gotta take
Yeah.
a break. You gotta go get into nature. For some people, it's yoga. For other people, it's meditation.
This
For
is
some
exactly what
people,
I say all the
yeah,
time. Yeah.
yeah, maybe it's lifting weights at the gym or walking your dog or
It
doing a
could be
puzzle.
it could be
Right?
active. It could be rock climbing. It could be going to do improv. It could be, all of these things that we talk about when we talk about self-care. Self-care is not just manis and petties. It's
Yeah.
and I love this new way you're framing this for me is self-care is actually a way to change the story and release the energy. Release the
Yes.
energy that's not serving you, I guess I
Yes.
should say, right?
Yes. And replace it with something different.
I love this because this is such a new way for me to talk about this with full props to you um, on looking at this. And I love how you are balancing that we we don't take the emotion out of the interactions, but we find a way to work through it. So you're not, so, when you're using all those analogies about a blank slate, an Excel spreadsheet, you're not telling people not to feel. What you're saying is get yourself to a place where you're more grounded and work through the emotions. Don't deny them and don't pretend that this is all so cold and clinical. And I think that's hard for some people to understand. They're like, well, am I
Yes.
supposed to embrace my emotions or am I not supposed to embrace my emotions?
Yes, yes. It's feel it to release it, but be careful not to perpetuate it. Feel it to release it, but don't stay stuck in the churn of he said, she said drama. Don't post on Instagram about it and comment here or pick up the phone or text this or don't spread it. Even journaling to yourself, if you're like complaining and like
Angry journaling.
perpetuating your
Yeah.
own angry journaling, you can be perpetuating the energy within yourself.
Yeah.
Feel it to know it's there and then make a conscious choice because there's power in our thoughts, there's power in our choices to bring in something new. Think of a time when you felt at peace. Think of a time, like an exercise I like to do with myself is to sort of imagine myself as separate from me, maybe a different time in my life when I was a teenager or when I was a child or some other version and speak to that version and bring that version in and
Uh-huh.
talk to it and say, I've got you. I care about you. I'm interested in hearing what you have to say. And
Yeah.
really bring that energy of self-love and self-care
Yeah.
and replace it with replace that feeling of being uncared for or unseen or unheard
Yeah.
and it's really about the feeling and less about the words in the story. And I think where humans have gotten tripped up is that we're so smart, we're so intellectual, there's so many books and words and things that we've lost touch of the feeling and the emotion and the energy. And we're trying to intellectualize everything.
Yeah.
And the best self-care are those things that create a gap between our intellectual mind, our
Uh-huh.
ego mind, and like the energy in our bodies.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
One of my past guests, Chris Johnson, talks about the power of the pause
Mm,
and just being able to take a minute to realize what's going on and try to take yourself out of that loop that you're
yeah.
talking about, that endless loop. So,
Yeah.
oh my gosh,
Yeah.
this is so good. I'm just curious, when you were in litigation, was this where you discovered some of these techniques? Were these almost survival techniques for you? Like how did you
Yeah.
go from applying it there to the work you're doing now with leaders and teams? Like what?
Yeah, yeah. Great question. I think what's woven into this is my own human evolution, my own sort of like awakening and like growth, right? Like, and as I've always been an intuitive and empathic person. I've always been a bit of a sponge and like absorbing it. And so I've always sort of wanted to like help my clients, right? And I'm not helping them if there's a huge legal bill attached to whatever win, occurred. And so there was that, there's this intuitive empathic part of me. And then I think I just got to a point where, I didn't come into litigation wanting to talk about fear and feelings. I didn't even start this consultancy like fully like with the idea that like I want to talk to people about their feelings and their fears and get to the root of it. I
Yeah.
wanted to solve problems. I wanted to make people better. I wanted to help my clients achieve their business goals. Guess where that took me? Fear and feelings, because that's what's
Yeah,
that's what's at the root. So
totally.
I came at this as like this very like practical,
Yeah,
intellectual, like law school legal process,
right.
and I've got all that. Like I got all that. I can do that. That's not a problem. But if we're really solving what's at stake, we got to go into fear and feelings.
We do. And I'm just wondering, I guess my question is more like, did that come up with for you in litigation? Where
Yeah.
you sort of started to see this and did it actually change your outcomes within that profession?
I mean, it helped to have this mindset in that profession, but there's so much fear around the process of litigation.
Yeah.
And I can remember one of the last cases I was handling. I got a hold of an audio recording of the other side call. I was representing a managed care like health plan, and I got a copy of the recording of the other side calling in, and I could hear the person. I could feel their energy. I could hear their voice. And I got it. I was like, I get what's happening here and why this has turned into all of this.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to my client, who was also a lawyer on the inside, not the business person, not the person on the other end of the call, not the
Right. The
person making
counsel.
this,
Yeah.
the in-house lawyer, like, this is what's going on. This is what this is really about. And can we talk to this person or that person? Oh, no, no. We don't let our outside litigation counsel talk to our business clients. Like it was like, you're over there, that's your lane. So, and then there's all this worry and fear. Once you're in that process, like you don't want to give anything up, you don't want to reveal anything, you don't want to show weakness, you don't, just the mere like, I think we should mediate this dispute. Oh, then you don't think you're right, you don't think you're going to win, you
So
must
it's
feel,
counterproductive to resolving the issue,
it's
which is what you thought you
counterproductive.
were there to do.
Right. It's counterproductive because it perpetuates everything and almost disconnects it all too.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I really wasn't permitted as outside, I'm not even, I'm outside litigation counsel, and then next to me is in-house litigation counsel, and then next to that person is, her boss, and then next to that person is maybe a business leader, and then down the corporate tree, 2 or 3 steps is the person who's actually responsible for this relationship, who could speak to it and say the words that might make a multi-$100,000 litigation process go away.
Yeah.
And so I don't have the power or the proximity to do it.
You're like,
So,
I'm out. I can't do this anymore.
yeah, you want me to write interrogatories? What?
You're like,
Yeah,
this makes no sense.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
and
yeah.
now you're helping leaders and you're helping teams and organizations navigate this. What, as we kind of wrap up, I'm curious, what kinds of challenges, how are they phrasing the challenges they have? They might not be coming to you saying, we're having conflict resolution issues, right? So what are some scenarios for our listeners to understand where this advice is applicable, I guess? What are the
Sure.
pain points your clients
Yeah.
are communicating to you?
Yeah, the pain points is like maybe an organization is scaling rapidly and they're feeling like the growing pains, and they're feeling frustrations between and among themselves and or maybe they are dealing with an external partner or someone internally and they're just feeling the pain of not being able to get their way and they're a little amped and maybe they have an idea that of what litigation costs and they want to talk to someone else first or maybe it's more internal. They're like, I know we're not going to make it if we don't like smooth some things out because we're
Right,
growing quickly and
right.
this is only going to get more painful. And so I think my ideal, I do sort of workshops and trainings and internal stuff, and then I also consult on like potential disputes or tensions. And I think what's nice about me is that I bring in this backdrop of litigation process, what it is, what it isn't, what it costs, so I
Hmm.
can speak to all of that and compare and
Right.
contrast and sort of I'm a good person to talk to before you call your outside litigation counsel in
That's a
that way.
great way to look at it. Well, I mean, and there's so many issues that are just these people and communication issues that get in the way of the actual work that the organization is there to do.
Hmm.
And
Right.
it's if you're feeling that tension, if it feels like people are not working together as a cohesive team, if there's a lot of, side conversations and backstabbing, it's this is inherent on the onus to solve this is on the leadership to be able to see that this is what is going on and to not be
Yeah.
afraid of it, not to try
Yeah.
to ignore it and hope it resolves itself or hope it goes away. Like, no, we've got to have an intervention here if we want to move
Yeah.
forward. Things are moving too rapidly. We've got AI, we've got 5 generations working in the workplace, we've got a market that's like going all over the place these days. We don't have time to help
Hmm.
for these things to kind of work themselves out on their own because they
Right.
won't. So
Right.
we need people like you within organizations to be like,
Yeah.
let's nip this in the bud. Let's be
Yeah.
honest. Let's be vulnerable. Let's just deal with it so we can move on.
Right. Right.
Right? Oh my
Right.
gosh.
Right. And it's interesting as you were talking, what came to me is like one of the red flags when I know like an organization needs some work is when everyone is dead quiet. You come walk into the room or on the Zoom call and no one's talking, right? No one's chit-chatting, no one's how's your weekend? No one feels free. No one feels safe.
Yeah.
Everyone's eyes on the whoever's allowed to have an opinion or to
Yeah.
speak. So
Exactly.
that quiet is deafening. Like when I feel that and see that in a room with a group of business leaders or colleagues, I'm like, okay, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
there's something to
Exactly.
this.
Oh my gosh, Ursula, you have just like charged me up today. I love it. This is so good. I need to put this episode in my ear for a lot of situations that I run into these days and just honestly dealing with the world at large right now. So, so
Absolutely.
thank you so
Absolutely.
much for this. We are going to have all your links in the show notes, a link to your company, Conflict Reimagined. But for anyone that's on the go, tell us where they can connect with you and find out more about your work.
Yeah, Conflict Reimagined. That's my website,
Mhm.
www.conflictreimagined.com. Google me, Ursula Taylor. I think I pop up here and there.
Great.
So yeah,
Great,
yeah.
great, great. And we will put, like I said, we'll put all the links to things that we referenced in the show notes as well. But thank you so much for your time and your insights today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Maria. It's my pleasure.
And thank you everyone for listening to another episode of the Empathy Edge podcast. If you like what you heard, you know what to do. Please rate, review, or share it with a friend or colleague. And until next time, please remember that cash flow, creativity, and compassion are not mutually exclusive. Take care and be kind.